Fantastic. All right, a bit of a delay on that one, but we'll get that sorted out. This is episode number 7 of the No Views Show. This is a longtime friend who I haven't seen in person in quite a while. A gentleman, an intellectual in my eyes, Mr. Zach Ripka. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm absolutely thrilled for this one.
Big fan.
long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're coming to us live from Montreal. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, still in Montreal.
All the way across the this great nation. So I wanted to know because you're one of the people that I follow pretty much rather frequently on Facebook. A lot of people I just don't follow because I don't feel like they have. I don't want to say meaningful things to say because I think a lot of people do, but I don't think people get as in depth on as many issues and really do the research as you do. And it's one of the reasons I quite enjoy following in that sense. But what I want to start with is how long have you lived in Montreal or even in Quebec?
Well, we graduated together, and then I moved to Edmonton, lived there for 4 years, and then in 2016, so do the math, I moved to Montreal, and I've been going to McGill out here ever since. So it's been 4 years. I'm going to my 5th year, really.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess one of the things I'm curious about, because a lot of the people I talk to, either they're living elsewhere right now. Actually, I think half the guests that I've talked to are currently either living out of province, if not out of country. In terms of differences, and I don't know how, I've been living in Edmonton for, I think, 5 full years now. And the way I see it is my life's almost split up to there's a small little part to start in Fort Providence and living in the Northwest Territories, but then it's kind of like Wetaskiwin and then Edmonton, and even what is an hour apart can some days feel worlds apart because of what it was like to grow up in a small rural town in Alberta, and then even going to a bigger city, although many would argue that Edmonton's not particularly big. But maybe like major differences even from Wetaskiwin to Edmonton. But I guess more what I'd like to know about, and I'm very curious about, is the difference between maybe the things you've seen in Alberta and the things you've seen in Quebec overall, but also in Montreal.
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's something that I don't really understand. I try to figure it out in my mind, just like, how do you really say in a couple sentences the character?
Yeah.
Right? It's really tough, and it's something that I've super struggled with, especially after I moved. Edmonton was one thing, you can speak to that. Looking back on it, I thrived when I moved to Edmonton. It felt like it was the same as Wetaskiwin, except that it was more in terms of culture. It was more easy for me to find activities and people and perspectives and events that made sense to me. So it felt like I didn't have to sacrifice anything in terms of culture. I understood everything already. It was all good. And then I just went there and I was like, great, there's more shows that I want to go to. There's more people who are thinking about the same kind of stuff I'm thinking about. And no disrespect to Wetaskiwin, it's just what it is. It's
I mean size is a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had my, I'm doing big air quotes here, my big move from Wetaskiwin to Edmonton when I was 18. And so, I'm like, yeah, I did it. So I'm 20, I was 22 or something when I decided to move from Edmonton to Montreal. And Alex, I had no idea what I was getting into.
Had you been to Montreal for an extended stay before then, or not really?
No, I actually, I intended to go to U of T, but I applied to both places, and McGill is where I got in. And so it was happy, I saved I don't even want to imagine the amount of money I would have paid if I had gone to Toronto over the last 4 years. But it's, I don't know, just I knew it's okay, well, it's French there, right? Okay, well, I speak French. I'm obviously an Anglophone, but I can work in French. I thought I was all good. And the cultural difference was so intense. And actually I still feel that way now. And it's compounded by I don't know. I think there's lots of Anglophones who feel very comfortable in Quebec for some reason or other, but at McGill, and I imagine it's the same at Concordia, they're English universities. They're English universities completely. All classes are taught in English. And so for me, it's like I have like I can count. I don't even need one hand to count my fingers. Wait, you got it. To count the people that I know that I'm friends with who are from this province. Like I have like a community here and stuff, but like barring maybe like one or two people, they're all Anglophones. None of them are from here. They're all either from the U.S. or from like Ontario, Toronto, Vancouver,
Yeah.
like this kind of thing. And a lot of Albertans. We totally found each
Really?
other out here. So, oh yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So what do you think? I mean, there's one thing I want to touch on because you said, even that move to Edmonton in terms of you didn't feel like you have to sacrifice culture, but then also say that, maybe you don't feel even yet still like I don't know if not a true Quebecer, because I think there's a bit of a variety even within that province. I think it's very similar to Alberta, where if you live in a big city, say in Montreal or Quebec City, you probably have a different feel than, sorry for not knowing any Quebec rural towns, but, a town of 5,000 out in rural Quebec, maybe 3 hours from any major center. I think those are probably two different people, but maybe just expand a little bit on, do you think it's one, obviously people come to Montreal probably to find like-minded people. Maybe they see something in the city, but to feel still like an outsider, do you think, like, where do you think that comes from, or where do you think those emotions kind of come from?
Great question. I mean, I think a lot of it is school, to be honest. Like, I think if I, say I just like had a degree in my pocket and I just moved to Montreal, like, because I wanted to, I think that my answer to this question would be like way different. Because as an Anglophone here, like I think every Anglophone in Montreal would like resonate at least a little bit with what I'm saying. But this like particular thing of like me having this community of like Anglophones who have no family here, no roots here, I think that's a school thing. I think that's because
Yes.
everyone is here. They come from another place. They get a really good education, and then they like go work in like New York or Toronto or
Yeah.
wherever. Or they move back home. And so I've actually like I've seen almost like generations of like my friend group, like from my perspective, right? Like
Yes.
kind
Yes.
of moving away. And I never did go to U of A, but like I spent a lot of time in Edmonton. My siblings go there, this kind of thing. And it seems to me that the people who go to U of A in general, the average U of A student, seem to have more like roots. I could be
Yes.
wrong on that. Correct me if I'm
I would
wrong.
agree. I would agree honestly with both, having experience with U of A and with McEwen, and even knowing people from the other potentially smaller universities. I would say that's by and large very, very similar. Or if they're coming from anywhere, it's probably from rural Alberta to come to Edmonton to go to school.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, no matter who you are, like I always say, like McGill is weird in the context of Montreal. Montreal is weird in the context of Quebec, and Quebec is super weird in the context of Canada. So it's just like, what are you doing? It's like it's pretty
It
black
it
and white.
is though. I don't think people. I've been fortunate. I think I've been to Montreal twice and Quebec City once, and I don't think people understand how much different it is. Even when you enter into the province, it's almost like a country within a country. Not to say in an exclusive sense, but like when you go down to downtown Montreal, I've been to Paris. Like there are times where it doesn't feel like you're in Canada.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So in terms of, I guess, obviously it sounds like part of it is transitioning while being in school, and you're still in school currently.
Yeah.
And what are you taking?
I'm on the tail end of a degree in, pardon me, geography, and I'm doing some computer science as well.
Oh, very nice, very nice. And what is this is one of my favorite questions. It's a bit of a tough segue, but what is the dream? Say, 5 years from now or 8 years from now, like what would be maybe a dream position or somewhere you'd like to find yourself after school?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm like kind of struggling with that right now. I will be in school for a while longer. Like
Okay.
I'm going to be doing grad school
Oh,
applications
nice.
this fall, and so, but it's kind of like I have some options, but I'm like, I could pick one, and I would have a totally different answer to this question, or
Yeah.
I thought I've done a lot of thinking about like I'd like to maybe do a what's the word, an accredited program in urban planning. That's been
Okay.
on my mind for a couple of years. But then at the same time, like I read a lot of in this field in geography. There's like you'd be actually surprised at how much like heavy criticism that field gets from like scholars, from community activists. It's like a lot of people think it's kind of toothless in terms of like you may actually not be able to like, we think that urban planners kind of build the city,
Yes.
but their power to actually sort of like determine like how things are built and whether it's healthy for people or not, is actually, it's like weirdly up for debate in a way that I was not aware of until pretty recently. So I'm not sure, but you'll have to check in with me in a year or two.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you on again at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, urban planning, that's brilliant. And I mean, it's nothing I know a whole lot about. I took an economics degree and, I'm a bit of a assassin for hire, I guess, in terms of financial planning, and working on my
Yeah, I saw
CFP.
you're doing your, what is it, CPA or something?
Yeah, CFP, certified financial planning.
That's what I meant.
And yeah, if urban planning is toothless, certified financial planning is colorless. In the sense that, you know, you can be as unique as you are as a person, but when it comes down to numbers, demographics, trends, statistics, there's a very high likelihood that the people I deal with will fall into some category, myself included, that will put them on more or less of a cookie cutter path, where, I mean, the differences come down to what you do at an individual level for you to push yourself maybe outside of how much you earn or how much you're putting away, how much you spend to protect yourself, all those things. But those are boring and for my everyday.
Oh, but good for
Well,
you. That sounds good. You
I
wrapped that
enjoy
up,
it. Pardon me.
you wrapped that up, that certification?
I am currently in the core curriculum stages. Just before that, I got to do an investment planning course and a tax planning course, and then write an ethics thing online. Well, long story short, I'll even have the chance to write this November if I fly through everything and feel confident enough to pass it. Or we're looking at May 2021, which, still I'd be 26 years old, degree and a CFP. Would be pretty thrilled with that foundation if I completely want to sell all of my soul to the corporate world of doing things for other people until you retire and call it a year or call it a life. In the sense of urban planning,
Perspective, Alex.
Let's spend a little minute on this, because here's a concept I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's the idea of balance and why I like it and why I don't like it. Because I think what people think about when they hear the term, when people say you need to balance your life, you need to balance your lifestyle, or balance the things in your life that you feel are priorities. I think what people often miss is balance doesn't mean that the things in your life have to require equal energy or equal time. But if, say, there was some power bar, energy bar, whatever metric you want to use, let's say it's 10. You got 10 energy units to use per day for the things you want to work on. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have any dependents. I don't have things currently in my life that would require a large amount of emotional attachment or emotional pressure. Now, that may change week to week. That may change month to month, family things, potential tragedies, potential positives, potential girlfriends, boyfriends, what have you, relationships.
Oh yeah.
What, like whatever drives that. So when I think when people think about balance, they go, okay, well, I just need, like, everybody needs the same amount of time and the same amount of energy. And I think the one thing where I look at it is I go, okay, what's the minimum requirement for each thing? So for work, maybe that's 2 out of 10. I got to make sure that 2 out of the 10, efforts I put in a day, I need to tie those things up. Could be 3 or 4, depending on the day. And then same thing, athletics, like my bike rides or my runs. Those also need 2 to 3. Cleaning, making sure my house is clean, maintaining order within this space. That's 1. It's just the way I approach it, I guess, is find the balance that works for each facet, but don't get hung up on the balance in terms of, is everybody okay or is everything in line? Just as long as you're ticking off the boxes every day, you'll have the opportunity to switch to other things. So I guess one thing when I talk about work, it is like, I love working with people. I love talking to people, and it's the right industry for me in the sense that it's just a little bit heartless, where at the end of the day, it's your money. So between your family and talking about your everyday life, money is like the ultimate stressor within the Western world. Right. So for people who come to me with questions, with this sense of urgency, I guess, about their financial dilemmas or prospects, there's already a vested interest. It's like they've almost paid for their entry just by telling me that they're committed to an idea. So yeah, a little off topic, but it has been something that, especially during, working from home, and this is my Mecca. This is where everything happens. This is where the work happens. This is where the show happens. That's where the athletic activities start, finish, every meal, everything. Anyway,
Yeah.
pardon
Oh,
me.
I feel you. I feel you. And your place is in Edmonton, right?
It
Or
is,
in
yeah.
Wetaskiwin? Okay.
We're
Okay.
in the heart of Little Italy right now in
All right.
Edmonton.
Oh, I like it up there. That's nice.
It is. It is actually a nice neighborhood, and there is quite a bit of culture as far as Edmonton's concerned, depending on the week here.
Hmm.
It is a nice spot to be. One thing I wanted to ask you that I was going to transition into there before got a little fired up about work and life, but that's why I love this. Your sense of community, and now knowing you're an urban planner, or that's potential, and again, talk to you in a year or two when the chips
Yeah.
fall where they may. Um, how big to you is the sense of not only community, but contributing back to your community in a positive way?
Do you mean how, like, do I think it's important? What is that like in Montreal? Like, what do you mean?
For you personally. So I would say yes. Yeah, let's start with how important is your sense of community, whether that be every day, digitally, like the people and the ideas that you hold valuable to you every day. How important is that to you? And feel free to use any metric you'd like. Like, it can be qualitative, quantitative. It's a bit of an open-ended question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something I think about like every day. And I think it's something that I don't know, like it's something that I really believe. I think you have to put work into it the same way, people talk about like a marriage or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I really like absolutely believe that. And I think that one of the things that there's a lot of things I'm like kind of wish never happened when I moved to Montreal, but got to be grateful for the experiences.
Learning
But I
experiences. Yeah.
was so lonely for years. Like it
Yeah.
was it was brutal. And like, again, probably something that wouldn't have been the case necessarily if I wasn't in school or had I
Hmm.
moved to a different place. Like who knows? You can never know those sorts of things or
Yes.
change them.
Tough to play the
But
what if
man,
game.
yeah, so it was a little bit like I think this is something that I've always felt like this feeling of you have to prioritize. Like I mean, I would say like you're talking about the energy bar, right? Like you got your
Yeah.
10. Like if some of that is not going into community, you're either like I don't know, in a position, say maybe you live at home or like there's this kind of like automatic community, or
Hmm.
you're, I would say,
Hmm.
probably not like super healthy. Because I absolutely believe like your friends, your neighbors, your family, and then also beyond that, like any community that you can sort of lay claim to, or that can lay claim to you. So like I don't even know the people that live on my street. We just moved a couple years ago, or weeks ago, and but it's like there are things that they can ask me to do that I should do, and like
Yeah.
maybe not legally or whatever, but it's like in my opinion, living a good life means being attentive to those things. And the beautiful thing about community is like we should be interdependent. We should be
Yes.
like I know people, and I've been this way myself in the past, where you're maybe like not you don't want to burden people. You don't want to ask people
Yeah.
for things. You want to tell people when they did something that kind of hurt. You don't want to. There's this like element of like we should be these like individual people who can like be tough, but it's I just don't. I don't buy it. I think that we are literally on a level of like biology, the way that our like cultures have always worked until like the like pretty recent sort of reality. We've always needed each other, and it's you're
Yeah.
healthiest when you have actually like you depend on each other in these kinds of ways. So yeah, I hope that's a good answer to that question. That's the way I feel about it.
No, it is. I agree wholly, and it's one of the common themes that's come up kind of through this, because one of the reasons I started this kind of platform was to reclaim almost that community I felt I had in a physical sense, and to also draw on perspectives from other people, because I would agree. I mean, for example, the guy who lives next door to me, it's twofold in the sense that there's really very little I know about this guy. I know that he welds, and I know that he goes to church, and guy keeps his yard work in order. So when I go to mow the front lawn, he shovels my walk from time to time. So I just mow all the way past to his gate and back.
Why
And
not?
and exactly right. And it's nothing. And it's 5 to 10 minutes out of my day that I can take and make it easier for him. Maybe he's working a longer day. Maybe he's got overtime. but he's also shoveled my walk. There's just the sense of you're a good person, I'm a good person. And it is that shared space and that shared ideas. And I would agree with you as well when you say, yes, there's this, and it seems to be very recent where, yeah, you need to be your own person. You need to be independent. You need to, be selfish almost in a sense. But I think what we're forgetting is, we're not forgetting, but you need to put together those things. Here's why I'm not as, or why I'm hesitating on this. This I haven't talked about as much, but I don't think people value their digital communities as much as they should, in the sense that every app, every platform is worth as much as you put into it. So if you go to Instagram strictly to check what other people are doing and peg yourself within this pseudo idea of curated reality or this digital reality, you're going to find yourself in this feedback loop forever where you can't find where you land or how people feel, because this is not reality. This is not everybody's 24/7. So, and if you go back 30 or 40 years, or, our parents or even our grandparents' ages, you were limited to who you could see, who you could talk to, and you had to, even if you disagreed with people or you didn't share the same values, you found a way that everybody felt like more or less a cohesive group. So I think it's exactly what you're saying, is you have to, I would agree with you. Like, if you don't have a sense of community in some way, or like you said, if a community doesn't have a claim on you, whether it be one organization, one club, one group, it's very hard to build off of that for your own personal gain, let alone the group's gain. So I think it's a huge part of what we do. And it's just like, I don't know, where do you see it trending with the interconnectedness, the connectivity, and the technology? Do you think it's going to become easier? It's going to become harder? Or do you think we're doing a good job?
Oh man, I mean, it's all different in the pandemic, right? Like
that too.
I could kind of say, like, where I think social media, like, let's assume, like, I don't know, like, God forbid, or knock on wood or whatever, like, that there's going to be a vaccine, right? Like, okay, at some point, like, life's going to resume the normal track it was on. So if we, like, Zoom, I don't know what the long effects of this, like, kind of the pandemic has kind of like pushed us to, it's like, we could have done this in 2010, but it sucks, so we didn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we've had this technology, and it's just like, now we're like, this was the internet dream. This was this is like, at a certain point, everyone's like, this is going to be awesome. You're going to be talking to your friends. And then, like, you don't do it unless you have to. It's horrible, right? Like,
it is. No, I agree. I mean, that's exactly what happened with work, and I've said this a few times on this show. I look like Chicken Little on the Friday the week prior to the nationwide email being sent out saying you now need to work from home indefinitely. I packed all my stuff up, and people are looking at me like, sky's falling. Hey, Chicken Little, like, here comes coronavirus. And I said, look,
you knew ahead of time.
I was like, I'm not a health expert. I'm not anything. Just a few signs I've seen in the past 3 to 5 days tells me that we're not going to be immune to this. We work in a downtown building with shared office, like, just everything. I was also the same person. Like, I thought we'd be, 3 or 4 weeks. They'd be like, you know what? We just can't quite control it. It isn't that bad. Let's just carry on. But yes, here we are. But that's exactly it.
Sorry. I was going to say, I was chill. Like, it wasn't a big deal, China, then it wasn't a big deal. Iran and Italy. And then I was like, oh, it's kind of like people are talking about it. And then that last week, my profs, like 2 or 3 different of my teachers, like, started bringing it up in class in these ways that none of my friends were talking about it. Like, they would say things like, we'll do this next week if there's class. This kind of thing. And I was like, oh, these guys, like, but what I didn't realize at the time is that they are in these meetings. They're the people who are, like, actually, so they knew, I didn't know. And I was just like, whatever. And then when it got handed down, we had a big, midterm that everyone was cramming for, but we heard it maybe was shutting down. So we're refreshing the page of, like, kind of a celebration for us, but then, like, great, look what, careful what you wish for, right? Like, September 8th, something is like, not good.
Like, the devil you know is, or the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, where it's, I mean, and to say whether it was going to be positive or negative, still hard to say even right now. And even, like, I talked with Mitch, right? And I said, when did you know, just because he was in Japan and China, I was like, with the news cycle over there, and maybe with a little bit of, how interconnected just even those two countries are, it's like flying across the country here. I said, how quickly did you know? And he said, about, 3 or 4 weeks prior to everything, I just told my parents, I said, look, we're running out of toilet paper here. People seen me hoarding things.
Oh
Not
man.
saying it's going to happen, not saying it might affect you, but
Yeah.
just letting you know. And I thought, wow, that was 3 weeks prior to us. Like, exactly. We're just going to class, hanging out. I'm going to work, not a care in the world. And all of a sudden, it's as if the foundation of everything you've ever known has forced us to question how comfortable we were with the systems that we figured were automatic, that now we have to reflect and deal with it in real time. And that notion alone, just the way you're shaking your head, is an unbelievably scary notion, because you're essentially taking your life the way it was, no matter how adventurous, how far you push the envelope, and somebody just saying, you have to basically scrap that, take what you have right now, and go forward. For how
Absolutely.
long, we don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
It's
Oh
just,
man, I don't know.
I'm sure I've used strange as a word more than I've used just about any other word this year to
Yeah, it's
describe
been strange.
everything.
That's for sure. But I mean, no, to your question, like if we can assume, like, let's say that this never happened, or that it'll
Yes.
end, like, sometime soon. I
Yeah.
think that honestly, like, I think that these social media technology, like, I don't know, it's definitely a big deal. I would
Yes.
be dumb to, like, think that, or to get on here and say, like, oh, it's not. But for me, like, I think that we had really serious problems with community, like, decades, or maybe even a couple centuries before we had that kind of like connectivity and whatever. Like,
Yes.
my personal wish is for, like, a app version of, like, a rotary dial telephone, where it's like, if I get a message or an email or whatever, it goes to that button. And also, if I get a call, it goes. It's just like, I hate checking all the apps. I wish it was
Oh,
all,
yeah.
like, bundled in. Yeah, it drives me nuts. Like, I like being connected on them, but it's just like, I don't know. I kind of wish it was all in one place. But before
it's
that,
it's
like,
the two-edged sword, though. It's productivity versus like unproductivity, and that's, I mean, a bit of the tech way to look at it. Pardon interrupt, but that's exactly it. Like, the one thing that I was going to say, right, when you said the rotary phone, and if everything can just come through one app, I treat my text messages like I treat email. When I see it, I will get back to you. If it's something I need to take more time on, I will. But I love when people text me at 11 saying, hey, what are you up to a couple weeks from now? Or are you available, mid-October? And then I don't text back until, say, or I'm not planning on text back till after supper, because I can deal with it then. But 4 hours later at 3 o'clock, they say, hey, are you, like, what's going on? Are you available? And I'm like, how quick do we need to be? How
yeah,
instant does this world need to
like,
operate?
I'm off the clock, man. Like, what do you want? Like, but no, for sure. All I was going to say about the other stuff is just that I think that we are, for example, a really great example of this, I would say, is that a lot of people talk about, like, stress, and, like, people are, like, you're the economist, so please correct me where I'm wrong here, but people
I'll
are,
try. 2.7 GPA.
you know, they're, like, making less money, basically, in terms, like, compared to inflation
Yes.
than we were in. Like, there's all these, like, stressors, and then also people are pointing out that, like, the 40-hour work week, that now it's really common. Like, say you get a girlfriend or you're married or whatever, you're probably both working, and, like,
Yes.
that came about at a time when you could rely on the unpaid domestic labor of,
Yes.
like, your wife, basically. And so when I talk about community having problems, it's like, well, it was a problem when people were, like, pulling literally months straight of, like, 18-hour shifts in, like, textile factories in, like, Britain, 100 years. Like, that wasn't good for community. That was horrible for
No.
community. And then, like, you have kind of the same issue now. You look at people who are, like, have to work, and it only affects some people, just like the
Yep.
pandemic. But, like, it's only, like, that to me is a much more concerning problem with community than social media. Like, I am all for, like, we got to look into what's TikTok doing to the kids. How does
Yeah.
Instagram screw up my life? It really does sometimes, like, whatever. But it's just like,
No, it does.
yeah, like, what if you can't, like, give your kids, like, adequate nutrition because, like, you're working 3 minimum wage jobs? That is a problem with community, because, like, are you spending
Yes.
good time with those kids?
Yes.
Are you active in your neighborhood? Like, no, not really. So anyway, that's how I feel about the apps.
No, and it is. And again, I would, I seem to agree with a lot of people, but I would agree again in the sense that, high tides raise all boats, right? And that's exactly it. When we can get to a point where the people within your community feel a certain level of comfort, nobody feels excluded, nobody feels disenfranchised. Doesn't mean everybody's going to agree all the time. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be 100% all the time. But what it does mean is when you see that person struggling, or you can recognize, like, say you and I did live in Montreal together, and you and I rode our bike every second Sunday, little coffee and cake ride on Sunday mornings, taking it easy. And one day you're just, you're not talkative, or there's just an aloofness about you, or there's something off, right? I'm not going to be able to gauge that online. I'm not going to be able to gauge that from a phone call. But if I see you and visibly, and, not to take the sad side of things, because you very well could be just as happy with a, big grin ear to ear. And I'd be like, all right, this guy's got something to tell me. Like, what's going on? I got to hear this. But that's what I think is missing. And I look at the kids nowadays too. Like, when did you get your first cell phone?
Oh, I was 16, I think, or 15.
16?
And I had to like fight my parents. Holy smokes. Yeah. Yeah.
And did you probably had like, I couldn't have my phone past 10 o'clock. It had to be parked upstairs. I got my first one, I think, when I was 15, would have been either mid grade 8 or grade 9. Mm-hmm. And it was essentially like, text us if you need a ride to places, text your friends if you want. But you have 200 messages, 3 hours of nationwide calling or whatever it was. But there was rules associated with my phone. Did you have any, did your parents have any control over that?
I feel like that was all, I don't know, kind of worked out there was like a period of time where I just, I felt very kind of like left out, and like I felt like I would be part of the, community of like what people seem to be doing at school. And like, I felt like I was like missing out on stuff. Okay. And so it's like, I really want this thing. And my parents are like, no way, like absolutely not. And so by the time they caved, it was like, I had just, I don't know, I think I was like old enough that they were sort of like, okay, well, you have it now, like whatever. Yes. And I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there may have been some rules. I don't really remember.
They just gave it to you as a tool and said, look, it's going to be as great as you think it is, or it's not. So figure it out for yourself, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is strange to see. I saw these two kids the other day, maybe 9 and 11, both had phones. And I thought, this is a scary proposition for me, because I know at 25, as somebody who would consider, like, in terms of mental health and mental even strength, on the higher end of things. And not only that, but the ability to recognize when I do feel down, or when I do experience negative feedback loops. And, we always talk about having uncomfortable conversations, talk about the importance of these things, but I just don't know if, like, on mass, are we doing enough, or are we maybe not even doing enough? Because, before the action phase comes the recognition phase. Instagram, I rag on all the time, despite it probably being one of my favorite apps, but it's one giant keeping up with the Joneses if you're not utilizing it properly. And, I always talk about the curated reality, and, the more things you click on that you like, say the reason you like that dress shirt is because it has buttons on the collar, which means you can wear it casually and you don't need collar stays, or you can wear it with a tie and the collar's going to stay straight up. Maybe even like pinstripes as well. All of a sudden, you spend 3 or 4 hours trying to find one more shirt like that, maybe in blue. That 4 hours of your data, your time, your everything is so the companies can just take Zach Ripka and put him down this 1-lane highway of blue pinstripe shirts with no collar stays and buttons on the collar. And all of a sudden, for the next 3 months on your Instagram Explore page, all you're seeing is like these guys walking around in this shirt, and you're going, what is, like, I remember looking for that shirt, but this is not good. Like, I didn't sign up for people to just push these things on me. Like, why is everything pushing me towards?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could go for hours on that, but I guess to tie this.
You know what I want to just say real quick,
Absolutely.
Alex, that, like, I think so. First, like, 2 things real quick.
Yes.
So
I think it's all about the guests. It's all about you.
Your point that no, man, it's conversation. To the point that you made about, like, how, should we have these like 9 and 11-year-old kids having cell phones? It's like, it's hard to argue one way or the other, because on one hand, it's like, I just don't think we're doing enough about that. But then it's at the same time, it's like, well, that's what, like, that's what people say out of like doubt and fear. Like at this
Yes,
point, like
yes.
the older people in my family are on their devices, like arguably more than I am. But 10 years ago, they were the ones being like, this is ruining the next generation, right? It's like just kind of the boomer thing. But if we go too far in that direction, is kind of say like, you guys are wrong, like this is what it is. Like we can say it, like it is bad for kids to have too much screen time. It is
Yes.
absolutely bad for kids to have too much screen time. So, and I mean, it's bad for me, like you said, it's bad for us, and it's such an important skill. And like, yeah, I think 10 years, 20 years from now, we're gonna be looking back on this time and saying like, ooh, no, that's like, it's kind of like when we like see those Camel ads from like the 1950s. It's like, oh, your doctor recommends this cigarette or whatever. Like, no, it's like we can say it. It is bad. We know it's bad. Like,
What a great analogy.
like, let's just have that out in the open. So
Joe,
yeah,
Joe Camel, the surgeon, says only one a day for a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. No, but the other thing real quick I was going to say was it's an Instagram, keeping up with the Joneses, like gender comes into that so strong too. Because sometimes Instagram makes me feel like shit. Like I will be seeing stuff and kind of just like this is making me feel like, FOMO, or I need, like you said, you need that blue shirt. But the women that I talk to, my friends who are women who have like, there's people who like, they've gone all but thrown their phone in the ocean. You know what I mean? Just because the just stress and anxiety and pressure. And something that like, I won't say like all men, but that most men, we're not raised in the same way of like putting that extreme pressure on our bodies to look a certain way. And like, it's just like, I can't imagine. And that must be so hard. That must be so tough.
It is. And it's, even, and not to separate the men or women, but there was girls I have followed for many years, friends, people I've met once or twice, and to see them post a photo at 3:00, like it, some sort of caption, and I'm like, nice, cheers. And then all of a sudden I'm back on Instagram, say at 7 or 8:00, same post, maybe a little different angle, different filter, different caption, and different timestamp. And now I'm looking for the heart to see if it's lit up, to see if I've already liked it. And it's not there. And I thought, like, they posted it again, but they also deleted the other one. Like, what, and then I think in my head, I'm like, man, I don't know what kind of stress level it would take, or, I don't even know if there's a word that I'm trying to say, because I was going to say culture pegging, but that's not even close to what I want to say. But like, as humans, everything is in some way, shape, or form a little bit of a competition. And if it's not, we at least try and kind of peg ourselves to these arbitrary anchors. If there's somewhere you want to work or a place you want to work, you go, okay, that's the person who's there. This is roughly their average age, average wage. There's always been quantitative ways to kind of do that. But now it's like a guessing game, because so much of it is smoke and mirrors, where somebody might have this brilliant Instagram story, nice house, it's a beautiful day, there's somewhere that isn't like their normal home, and you think, wow, like that could be me, that's awesome. But what you might not see is they worked, every other Saturday at their second job to save up that money to book that Airbnb, to, have enough gas to travel there. That's their same car that they've been driving around wherever. And all of a sudden, all you're seeing is, you're just seeing the trophy in the trophy case. You're not seeing the struggle or the hard work, the positivity, the negativity. Like, it's almost as if we're not understanding the journey, and we're becoming impatient because of that. Or maybe I could be wrong.
It's like you're saying, like, that's the kind of thing that you would have an awareness of if that was just your friend that you were just hanging out with, talk to for 10 minutes, like absolutely. Because hey, Alex, I'll just say it right now while it's on my mind. I got a text earlier. I don't have to leave, actually. I can stick around for a bit longer.
Oh, wicked. Okay, well, let's try and go for right around an hour then, because it kind of opens up some spare time to kind of dive into these a little deeper. It's one of the biggest things that fires me up. I mean, just for brevity or timeliness is probably a better word. Picked up this book in Jasper. Shout out to Sonic 1029. The only time we'll be giving free shout outs, because I actually won their Tuesday Trivia and 101 night trip to Jasper. So my mom and I went out there. Yeah, I was pretty thrilled. Secondary shout out to a guy I work with who sent me the Batman trailer, which just so happened to be the majority of the questions on their Tuesday Trivia.
God, amazing.
So shout out, third shout out to Robert Pattinson for looking phenomenal in that preview. Anyway, it's called Thank You for Being Late. This book I picked up while I was in Jasper, An Optimist's Guide to Thriving in the Age of Accelerations. Now, I am gravitate toward nonfiction like, moths to a light. I don't know why. I think it's a dangerous thing, because I think fiction is brilliant to parallel life and also provide an escape, but it's very easy to get sucked into a lot of nonfiction and think the world's very skewed. But I personally hate when people are late. It drives me up the wall. So I saw this title and my first thought was, fuck this book. This is no chance.
Yeah.
Read the back of it, read the first 15 pages. I'm all in, because this guy said, why he said thank you for being late is because somebody showed up late to one of his breakfast meetings. He has sources who rolls through and people he needs to talk to write his columns. And this person was 5 or 10 minutes late, and he found himself in those 5 or 10 minutes not being, the term I use is plugged in, where, you're just sinking your time into not needless online activity, but things that maybe don't benefit the goals that you truly have or the desires you truly want. A bit of an escape almost. Mm-hmm. And he said it gave me a minute to just think about my surroundings, eavesdrop on some conversations, look at the building I was in, look at the menu a little longer, just absorb your surroundings. And one of the things I always talk about with people in my close circle is there is so much beauty in this everyday world that I genuinely find it hard to be sad or be in a relative level of funk, because all it takes for me is to go outside and see a new flower or a different bird or a child smiling. Like, that's all it takes for me to set a foundation to a positive feedback loop that gets me off my phone or onto my bike or onto 2 feet. And if you can just do that, if you can find a way to pause in life and take that half step back and just kind of, how many buildings have you been in and you don't know what the roof looks like because you've never looked up?
Yeah. Oh my God. Great point.
So I just, and maybe you have some thoughts on this, but it seems to be becoming harder, if you're not thinking about it, to be aware and to take that time. And, Ferris Bueller, what's the classic line? If, stop and smell the roses, or no, what is,
all I remember is the teacher calling the roll call. That's
Bueller.
That's that movie. Yeah.
Life moves fast if you don't stop and spell the, life moves fast. If you don't stop, you might miss it, or something to that effect. It's like to stop and smell the roses. Anyway, we'll reconvene at a later date after.
Exactly. No, totally agree. Like, I recently I saw this tweet that somebody, they were like, oh, just spending my time scrolling, AKA running a strip of sandpaper over my brain. And I was like, that's what it feels like. It's like, except for some reason you want to keep doing it. So there's like some opposite, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I've also seen people will, like what you're saying sounds a lot like, without using the word, like mindfulness or just
but
that
it is,
really, that deep act of like just paying attention to your surroundings. And like, it's not even about like, it's not, I don't know if you would agree with this, but for me, it's not so much like a positive thing. I'm not looking at something and doing something to it. It's just like, just being open to it and because then you kind of go off in these imaginative kind of, it just feels so good. But somebody I saw quite a while ago was talking about how mindfulness meditation is the opposite of scrolling, and that's something that's always stuck with me, because it's like, I don't know, maybe we'd have to think harder about this, but like, yeah, if what you described is mindfulness, and then scrolling on Instagram or Twitter, it's like, instead of appreciating things, like I find myself, I scroll very fast sometimes.
Yes.
Like I'm like, really, I'm only spending like a couple seconds on each post. And then if you like, and I'm a bit ashamed to say it, but it's like, sometimes you do that for like 25 minutes. So it's like, that's a long time to meditate. Like, for a beginner like me, it's a long time to take. You took a 25-minute walk and just appreciated the beauty of the world. Like, how good would you feel? But instead, I divided 25 minutes into like these 3-second chunks and just like, I don't know how you want to say that, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like,
I do. And the one thing that I think is absolutely brilliant that you just said is, it's not even about a positive or negative slant. It's about being open to the opportunity or to the experience. That last 100K bike ride I just did on or I guess yesterday.
Oh, huge. I saw that. Yeah, on your Strava. Oh my God, Alex, that's like huge.
Big bike guy this summer, especially with the gyms being closed. We went all in. Triathlon's the overall goal, so we'll see as
Oh,
the
no
days
kidding.
go
That's
by
awesome.
here. But for example, for that, 4 degrees yesterday, 4 degrees at 9 o'clock. You've been on a bike. It's not like going for a run. You can throw on a couple layers on a run, get your heart rate going, you get a little warmer, maybe go a little slower. The wind doesn't bother you as much. Going into a 10-kilometer, 15-kilometer headwind on a bike when it is 5 degrees, I'll tell you right now, it's flat out miserable. But it's exactly that. When I got to about the 60K mark, and I'm up just north of Edmonton in rural Alberta, and I come back with the wind, all of a sudden life doesn't seem so bad. It actually seems exactly that. It becomes enjoyable. However, when I got up that morning, I could have said to myself, it's a long weekend. Take it easy. It's cold out. Maybe just go for a run. Just relax. Just take it, take it in. And I could have, but at the same time, there was that part of me who said, the second you hop on that bike, you're not going to care about anything in the world except pedaling. Like that is one of your true, genuine joys. Just get out there, just go and do it. And even, I'll get to that at the end because I don't want to ruin it's not really a surprise, but I always end the show kind of in a similar manner, and I don't want to give it away because I'll let you think about it on the spot. Even with the meditating, the longest I've meditated, I've done it once. There's two things. Well, there's been a lot of things I've tried in this isolation, but I tried fasting, made it for, I think, about 36 hours before my body was in enough pain for me to be concerned to the point where I was getting up and getting a little lightheaded.
I can't imagine. Yeah, that's.
But the experience was certainly. I mean, if you want to know how long a day is, try not eating for 24 hours. It becomes very long, and you become very irritable. But anyway, to stay somewhat on track, and the other one was meditating. I set my phone down beside me, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes and 10 seconds. The 10 seconds is just going to give me that time to get in a comfortable position." And then I'm going to do it, all the online things say and what people say, just focus on one idea, whether it be your breath or, your body, just one idea. So I sat there and I just thought about, I only let my mind focus on one of two things. Either, I guess black's not a color, but black and just being literally inside my own head with my eyes closed, or my breath. 5 minutes felt like 45 seconds. It was gone. And going into it, I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought to myself, 5 minutes of being still, let alone meditating, that's going to feel like an eternity. And then all of a sudden, the timer went off, and I thought to myself, wow, that was 5 minutes, and I'm spending an hour on Instagram. Like, how can I be so plugged in for that long? And that's exactly it, right? Like, your eyes want to bleed in a sense from day to day. Because it becomes a drug almost, to the point where I'll be on Snapchat, despite having sent 0 Snapchats to anybody else, just assuming that maybe somebody's going to drop in. And I think to myself, how strange is this that I just jump onto it with these expectations or with this idea. And then if I don't, I go over to people's stories and same thing. I'm going a mile a minute. Just, hey, what's everybody up to? Hey, what's everybody up to? Where are you today? Where are you yesterday? What's on your mind? Yeah. Like I don't know.
It reminds me of is I don't know if you've heard this before, but so you're really not supposed to feed ducks in parks.
Yes.
It's really bad to feed them. I think for the same reason it's bad to feed like any wildlife, but also apparently if you feed white bread to ducks, they can just like die because their stomachs get really bloated and they basically are full of something that they can't digest. And because they're full, they don't eat, like it's algae. They're supposed to be eating like algae. But instead they have this like delicious bread. And so that's, if we're talking about community and like attention and mindfulness and experiencing our life, like, yeah, that's the worst. When, you hit the Instagram, you're like, you've seen all the posts, you're caught up. Whenever that happens, I just feel like a sinking feeling. I'm like, oh my God. But then sometimes 10 minutes later, I just open Instagram again. Like so it's, we have been robbed. We robbed ourselves, but it's like, it is set up that way. I want to shout out, like if anyone's listened to Rabbit Hole, the New York Times podcast about the algorithm that sort of drives YouTube. Amazing listen, really scary. I think it illuminates.
Oh geez, it sounds like something.
Have you listened to it?
No, but it's already, I'm going to have to now.
Yeah. Tell me what you think.
Have you seen the Great Hack on
Nope.
Netflix?
No.
Do you know about Cambridge Analytica last year, or not
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year, with
yeah.
the Trump
Yeah,
campaign?
after
And
the election, right? Yeah.
yes, same thing. University professor wanted to know what Facebook was doing with his data. He just said, "Hey, can you send me like every click through I've done and all the data you have?" Because at the end of the day, I'm the end user. And all of a sudden, it became a full-length documentary on Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and how they were using these things and how they're curating realities to people. And then that's exactly it. I think about my own life, and I bet you I could hand you my phone just completely blank and say, just go through the keystrokes from home button to Instagram. And like, it would be automatic. I could tell you exactly. It's on the second page in the center, just to the left. It's been there for the past 10 years. And
Yeah.
they've changed their logo, I'm sure, at least twice since I've had Instagram, where it used to be the old Polaroid photo. Like, that's how quickly things change. Skip the Dishes decided to go orange. I'd say I'm having a tough time after 3 weeks thinking about when they were even red and white, let alone orange and white. Like, the speed at which we consume seems to be, I mean, faster. I don't even know if there is a metric, but it is instantaneous. And there is no, you know what I was thinking about when you said about Instagram and you scroll through and you might spend 2 to 3 seconds. It's almost hilarious because we probably spend 3 to 5 minutes picking the photo we want, picking the caption, picking, how we want to throw it into the supply chain side of the things. And that's exactly what I do. I see somebody on a mountain, I glance the mountains, lake, see the two people, like, move on.
Yeah.
2.5, 3 seconds, just like that. And then you're gone. It's like, yet we spend 10 to 15 minutes thinking about what we're going to post. How does this make sense? Like, what are we applying ourselves to?
It's wild. It's wild.
It seems to be so bizarrely exponential. And I do also want to agree with the point you made earlier. Like, every generation has their qualms. My concern is that 25, the tea drinking old man, going to bed at 9:30 person that I am, there is a lot of science and research being put into the cognitive effects of what it is doing to even adults, but also adolescents. And
Yeah,
that's
and
where
let
my
me ask you,
concern
Alex,
is.
is it good?
I don't
What are the
think so.
scientists telling us?
I think the science is overwhelmingly up there with climate change, and
Okay.
probably smoking is undeniably bad. That's another thing. Like, I explained this to somebody the other day, and I quite like this analogy. And this is a bit of a different topic, because one of these things that I talk about is we live in the age where everybody has a voice. And with that brings a lot of good and a lot of bad, because what that means is, whether you're on your 5th degree at your 10th company and it's the 3rd time you've been a CEO, like, that is your accreditation, that is your knowledge level, that is your ability to consume and also redistribute information. You also now have the ability to talk to the immigrant that language or English isn't their first language, that's lived a hard struggle, spends 90% of their time working or committing just to making sure the family's okay. And now they both have a voice. And that's a beautiful thing. But life A from life B are worlds apart, for better or for worse. And now that's what we get when we go on Instagram, we go on to Twitter, we go on to Facebook. We get to see everybody in the raw, in real time, whether we're talking to each other or yelling at each other, liking posts, disliking posts. And that's even a whole nother subject. Let me try and tie this into one full idea and maybe even pose a question. Yeah, and I know I asked you about the way it trends, but what do you think, maybe, or what do you do even in your everyday life to make sure that you are committing to the things that are in reality valuable to you? Or do you even think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. Like, I don't know. I'm, being a little self-deprecating in this podcast. Like, I don't think
That's right.
that.
I'll boost you up.
Thanks. I as much as, like, I'm on Instagram as much as the next person, but it's not truly like a thing that's like destroying my life. Like, I often
Yes.
spend more time than I want, or it's like I'm not aware of it, and then, a few minutes has gone by and I feel kind of bad. And yeah, I go through periods trying to cut down, whatever. But I think that the ways that I struggle to, like, be in touch with my life there's also lots of other things that make that difficult that aren't necessarily social media. So for me, like, a big thing is just, like, work. I mean, anyone who's gone to school of any kind like understands that it can be pretty punishing, and like the the hardest part for me is that it's unpaid.
Yeah.
Like we're the same age, right? And so
Yes.
like I've done a few different sort of changes in my educational path, and I've learned a ton. Like super grateful for everything, but it's like I've been doing this, I guess for 6 years, and then I'll have a bachelor's degree, and then I'll keep going basically. And so it's kind of like I'm like I have no money,
Yeah.
basically. That's an exaggeration, but it's like my
But you're
revenue.
committed. Yeah, you're committed to this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm working like easily full time, easily more than
Yeah.
that. Just it's not me, it's anyone who's a student. That's just like what it is. And so I find that makes it really hard. It's like, yeah, how do I spend time with my family? How do I spend time like taking care of my house, eating good food, sleeping enough,
Hmm.
exercising, all these things. So yeah, I don't know if that's like a cop-out answer, but it's just like
No,
I
it's not.
definitely I
It's
don't
not.
blame social media for like that. It's like it's just hard. It is hard to like balance your life out and still have time to spend on the things you value.
No, I would agree, and I think it's a good way to kind of get off because I think we've pretty much chastised social media, even though it sounds like we both use it quite a bit, and that is the great paradox of social media is it's like anything else that is on the digital realm. How productive is it to you versus what do you get out of it, or do you not even think about it? Versus genuine struggles like trying to work full time while maintaining good grades, while maintaining personal relationships, the everyday struggle. Um, I kind of want to ask you because I took a 4-year degree. It took me 5 years. I even thought about carrying on potential for grad school, and even right now within the CFP, it feels essentially like I'm doing 2 classes.
I
Would be
can't
about the
imagine. Yeah.
equivalent. Like it's gross. And there's some days you're reading pages on pages of CFP stuff, and you're drooling because you're sleeping. It's pretty terrible some days. Um, but how do you find, I guess, or sorry, do you ever think about, is it all going to be worth it, or you know what does this mean in the long run? Because I find a lot of people, especially as they go into grad school, they go into these lengthy things, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about in the sense that if you don't recognize, if you became a doctor after your 8 years of schooling or whatever it was, and after a year of working in that field, you were just so deflated or it didn't really like drive that passion, would you jump ship? Like if somebody came to me, and said, "Hey, I'll give you 6 figures to ride your bike, X amount of hours, maybe you got to put in 15,000 kilometers a year, you got to move cities, do something else." Like if something triggered my passion, it wouldn't even honestly be the monetary compensation. But do you ever think about, yeah, in a sense, is this all going to be worth it? Or do you have any fears about the track you're on?
School has beaten the shit out of me in the
Yeah.
last like just always in like new and like horrible ways. Like I'm always like, oh, man. Yeah, I'll skip the story for now, but ask me about the math classes I took another time. It was like rough. But the thing for me
Sorry.
is that like I think I would be it's that question of like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, so like
Yes.
whether something because it aligns with like the values that you like really believe in as a person versus some kind of external thing that's like imposing these values on you. So
Yeah.
yeah, if I say like my family had like really intensely pressured me to be a doctor, like you said, and then I got, and I went through with it and it seemed okay, but then actually the work was like really grinding me down. That'd be so hard. I really have a lot of like sympathy for people who end up in that position. I think it's very common.
Yes.
And so like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm on that path. The reason that I am okay with kind of like getting like a bloody mouth in school so often is that I really like still, even when it's hard, I never feel as though like I'm like I'm letting myself down. And I don't mean that in
Nice.
like
Nice.
a success way. It's like I'm really learning stuff. Like I even,
Yes.
one of the
Yes.
math classes I took, I did not belong in there, but I totally failed it. But it's like I still will be able to do better in some of the comp sci classes I'm going forward to take
Mm-hmm.
this semester
Mm-hmm.
because I've been at least exposed to those concepts. And it's just really like it's beautiful knowledge. It's like really incredible.
Yes.
So for me, I don't think that I'm going to enjoy, I certainly have not enjoyed every aspect of school so far. It's been 6 years. I'm going to continue for several more years. I'm certainly not going to enjoy all of that. But at the end of the day, I can see a very direct link between the knowledge that I'm learning in these classes and through my, my peers and whatever, and what I'm interested in doing. And I'm not, it's not a concrete vision, but it's like I can see, this
The framework
cliche, like,
almost.
yeah, knowledge is power. Like I feel very powerful and I
Yes.
continue to get more powerful. So whether that leads to a job where it's like very lucrative or not, like I don't even have a specific vision, but I feel that if I leave school armed with the kinds of, like, I have a lot of questions right now and I'm sure I'll
Yes.
continue to build those up. But if I can find the answers to what I'm asking myself right now, I will be in a really good place, in my opinion. That's kind of
That's awesome.
how I see it.
So to follow up on that, because I really like this one, what do you want to, we talked about a lot about what we kind of want to consume or how we'd like to consume things, and about community. What do you want to provide? And this could be emotionally, this could be physically, this could be time wise. What do you want to contribute to the world that you believe is going to be undeniably beneficial?
We like I won't
And
speak
feel
for
free to take your time, because it's a bit of a big question, and I phrased it like that, or on purpose a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a good one. I was gonna say, like, I won't speak for you, Alex, specifically, but I would say that the average person knows that things are not going super well
Yes.
in terms of, like, we talked about kind of rotting our own brain cells after work because of this thing, social media. But like I really, like, to sound like a bit of like a, what's the word, I don't know, ringing the alarm. That's what I'm trying to say. We really have only a handful of years to solve climate change,
Yep.
and like this is the kind of thing, I'm 26, you're 26, like our kids are one day going to look at us and say, where were you? What did you do? There's
Yeah. What were
like,
you doing? What were you
you
doing?
know what I mean? And it's like, I think there's got to be like an element of, togetherness and community in pushing for that. There's got to be an element of shame. Like I know
Yeah.
plenty of people who are very equipped to be, they have wealth, they have, I don't know, a high position at their job or whatever it is, lots of time. They could be like organizing, volunteering, and we're not, because we're comfortable. And so
Yes.
whether it's, climate change, that one's like, it's undeniable, right? Like,
Yep.
it's just, that's a huge problem that's going to get worse and ultimately, like, basically kill a bunch of poor people. That's going to be on us. It's because
Yep.
of people like us. And so for me, like, I'm learning this stuff, and it's like, how do we, like, what should we do? And then how do we do it strategically?
Yes.
Like, how do we get to that point? So, whether that's the discrimination that, like, Black people face in Canada, in Alberta, in Edmonton, in Wetaskiwin, whether that's a discrimination that Indigenous people face,
Absolutely.
trans people, women, like, it's
Everybody
when you
who's been oppressed or even disenfranchised, like, and that's another reason I wanted to start the show, right? Like, people said we need to have uncomfortable conversations, and so I looked at myself externally, and sorry to interrupt, but now this is right on it. Like, so if I was to profile myself as me looking at me, which is a strange thing to say, white male, works in finance, school was paid for, two parents in the home growing up, never had to think about where my next meal was coming from, never been oppressed, never been racially charged or racially approached. I don't know what I've never felt that.
yeah,
So I look at my life and I go, I can offer a lot in the emotional realm because of what I've been through or what maybe I've put myself through, but no, I can't speak for, what the Indigenous felt. I mean, I played hockey with a lot of these. Like, what I tell people is, living up in the Northwest Territories, I was the visible minority, but I was too young to understand what that potentially meant. And at the end of the day, we were the wealthy family in the community. That's why we were there. Mm-hmm. Although there was a greater sense of equality in a much smaller community. But to look at myself, even growing up in Wetaskiwin, like, I've played hockey with, the Indigenous populations. They don't show up with the same confidence. They don't show up with the same resources, the same tools. So it's another thing, like you said, there's so many undeniable problems within what I call the Western world that kind of bunch Canada and the US together. Because I think there are a lot of differences, but there are a lot of similarities, especially as the cities get bigger. Well, there's a lot of diversity as well across the great things, or the great countries and space. So for me, it's exactly what can I do? Reduce, reuse. It's in that order for a reason. Recycling's great, but I can tell you as an economist and as somebody who knows a whole lot about marketing that, I think I went to Tim Hortons the other day and I thought, if this wasn't the times of COVID, I could come up with my reusable mug, hand it to them, have them fill it to me and put it back in. But that's not an option. So it turns into me, okay, I'll make coffee at home. I don't want to keep adding another paper cup. I don't want to keep consuming things at an alarming rate. Let's find a way, a 7-pound coffee bag that's cardboard with that little inner liner, or not cardboard, but the brown bags, or brown looking bags the coffee comes in. They have that little like kind of clear inner. Anyway, it's a better way to go get your coffee ground. And if you know a coffee roaster, just say, hey, I need another 7 pounds. Here's my bag again. Like, it's the same grind.
Absolutely.
Like, So go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go, please.
I don't know. I think that I would, I'd love to talk about that at length and this kind of thing. But the real way for me to like sum up the way that I feel about like my career and just the way that I want to like live my life and stuff is that there's two things. So first of all, we have to be honest with ourselves. And when we have science, we have like statistical methods, we have censuses, we have surveys, we have all these tools that like we've agreed work. So you look at that, you break it down, who's poor, who's marginalized, who's getting sicker, who lives in the worst part of the city, whose land was stolen. It's, it's obvious. It's like, racialized people, immigrants, etc. And so that's true. We have to be honest with ourselves about that. That's a fact. And then the second part is, well, what's the right thing to do in this circumstance, And so I'm not shouting you down, Alex. I just mean like to the general,
but that's the hard part.
So for me, the answer is like, well, yeah, the right thing for me is it's obvious. I don't know specifically, but I do know where I need to like put my energy and my education and my learning for the rest of my life, really. And like, I think that everyone, if you don't agree with me, like, speaking to the audience, like maybe you should be asking yourselves the same questions. And I'm so proud to see my friends in Montreal, to see my friends in Edmonton, to see my friends in Wetaskiwin supporting like, Black Lives Matter. This was massive this spring, right? Like that filled my heart with joy. You know what I mean? Just to see the support from everybody. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now, but that's where I'm coming.
That was the second title to the show, is the Soapbox Show. No, it was actually the Selfish Hour was the original. But it turns out there's a hip hop podcast that is also the Selfish Hour.
They beat you to it.
Yeah, I like both. Okay, this is perfect, and I think this is really good because I'm going to have you on again because I would like to discuss a lot of the things that we just chatted about near the end, but it was certainly more of a reintroduction. And it's been a bit of that for a lot of the people that I've had on, because it's very hard to tell what values or what beliefs people hold, maybe not even dear to them, but just even things you're thinking about in your everyday without these kind of conversations. And you're one of those people that I feel if I saw in Edmonton and we went for coffee, we just pick up where we left off, whether it be 3 weeks, 3 hours, or 3 years. There's just a genuine sense of, yes, I want to be here. I want to, let's just have this conversation. But my favorite way to end this, because it's been a trend in all of them. If there was one idea and you may have already touched on it, but if there's one idea or one thought as who Zach Ripka is today, that if everybody was listening, you had stadiums on stadiums on stadiums of somebody's undivided attention, what would you tell them?
About who I am?
Actually, pardon me, I should have finished that a little bit more. I guess I try and refrain from the word advice, because then I think people try and cling to cliches or try and jump to some sort of, tried and true. But if there was one idea or one thought or something that you think people could take away that they could use in their everyday life to benefit them, or even long-term, what would that be? Whether it be a concept or an idea, or, some people have literally been as short as get out there and adventure. There's no excuse not to.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I listened to, what did I hear? I heard part of the podcast you did with Mitchell. That was super nice.
Yes.
I listened to most of the one you did with Samara. Yeah, so positive. You know, coming from the perspective that I'm coming from, if I had stadiums and stadiums and stadiums of people, like, I feel like I'm glad that there's like the Samaras of the world to have that, like, you know, positive perspective and stuff. But you know what I'd say is, like, if, like, anytime that any of us are doing anything, I think we have to ask ourselves, like, is this making money for somebody, or is it the right thing to do?
Ooh.
You know, I think sometimes it's both. A lot of the times it's, you know, one or the other. So I just think that's like a really important thing that everyone should be thinking about a lot more, because we will be
Damn, I
some of the
like that
same
one.
problems. You know what I mean? So yeah.
No, that's not what I was expecting at all. But yes, that is very. I think people won't recognize that as a deep concept, but it is a deep concept to me. It's like anything else. I'm already thinking about 8 things at once now just from you saying that. But yeah, and I don't want to trump it because I like to leave people with the last word. So for the
Yeah.
audience, take with that what you may, or go ahead, please.
I just want to say real quick, like, I honestly, Alex, like, first of all, I'm super happy to reconnect with you like this. Like, it feels really good. And
I'm
like,
thrilled.
I
I
was
miss this more than I
surprised.
miss anything in my life right now.
No,
Genuinely.
I feel you. But for me, it was surprising, like, how much like, I was like, wow, you know, it made me reflect a lot on, like, my hometown. And like, you know, I think I left Wetaskiwin to, like, because I didn't know how to handle it in a way. And like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I know how now, but it's like something I don't think about a lot. So when I was like, whoa, there's like some people I grew up with that, you know, might hear my
Yes.
voice and like my perspective. It was like really interesting to be thinking about for the last week. But I just want to say, like, yeah, so nice to hear Tennille, Mitchell, Namir, like, Samara, everything. Like, that was so wonderful to hear what you guys had to say. I just want to say, like, hi to everyone back home.
Oh,
I miss you all.
awesome. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And funny story, I saw the last time I saw Samara was with Carlo on White Ave, right after I got in like a pretty bad car accident.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
yeah. So I was literally like in shock. Like, you know,
Yep.
nobody got hurt, but I turned left a bit later than I should have. And then the person ran the red light. So we're kind of both fucked up. And then,
Yep. Yep.
she just crushed the front of my car, like, in passenger
Yeah.
side. It
My
was
dad
okay.
crashed on an exact similar situation.
So I'm sitting on White Avenue, my head in my hands, like, what just happened to me? I'm like shaking, whatever. And then I hear Zach, and I look up and it's Samara and Carlo. I was like, oh my God, you guys, like, what a weird, hadn't seen them in years, haven't seen them since, but hope you guys are good. Uh, Thanks a lot for the support in that. Felt good. Yeah. So no, thank you so much, Alex.
Hey, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I'm gonna hit stop recording and just stick around for a couple minutes pre-show. And yeah, thanks everybody who's tuned in.